Pornography artists, do you ever get turned on looking at your own art while after you are working on it? If so, how did that turn out?
If I don't have a boner while working on something, I know I'm doing it wrong.
Not really, I only draw nasty stuff digitally, so I'm almost always zoomed in on a tiny piece of the drawing rather than looking at the whole thing. It's also really hard to tell if your work is even any good after staring at it for 6 to 8 hours, let alone if it makes you horny.
The idea at first turns me on, but then I start worrying over the shading and everything. So
I'm a wedding and portrait photographer. I met a couple who really liked their friends' pictures, so they booked me for what I thought it was a sexy shoot of both of them. When I got to their place, they sat me down and told me they wanted to do something more extreme. I thought some tit and a dick flash once in a while, but no, that was not it. They offered me 3 times the money if I took pictures of them having sex. I asked them to give me a few minutes to think about it, called my wife and told her the situation, and she agreed in not the best tone ever. The shoot took 15 minutes, and what a ride that was. I showed them the pictures and they approved of them all, no problem. It literally took me way too long to edit them, since I would start to edit and reminding of what happened that day would get me extremely horny, and the only way to get it out my system was to take it out on my wife. I'm never doing that again, even though it was really cool to experience edit. My wife knew I was going to be turned into a horny teen again. That's the only reason she agreed to let me do this, and oh boy did it turn out to be true. The couple became really good customers of mine and have brought me a lot of new clients. I had to buy me a new long range lens once the Rona hit, and for that they get 50% off at any time they book me. Some of those pictures were printed in huge 24 by 36 prints and were shipped out to their swinger friends, and of course I was offended one, but I kindly declined. My wife already told me I could do as many of those shoots as I want, but I think one for enough for me.
I mostly just weep. I can't draw boobs despite having 2 of them attached to me at all times.
I get turned on when I get the idea. I get turned on when I start planning the composition. I get turned on doing any reference gathering. I get mildly aroused when starting the sketch. I get into the sketch. I'm met with my own failures as an artist. I suffer through to the final sketch. I take a break to cry. I start the lineart. I think, beep, this is awful. This is the worst thing ever drawn. What is that, a hand? Because it looks like beep. I take another crying break. Somehow I stop crying long enough to finish the line art. I lay out the flat colors with no emotion whatsoever. I start rendering. I actually get really into the rendering. I get the lighting on the knees just right. I think, actually, this doesn't suck. This might be okay. I might post this somewhere. I suddenly remember it's porn. I make a mental note to only post it to the NSFW accounts. I move on to the face. Beep, I just remembered I suck at faces. I put in one shadow. It's terrible. I take another crying break. I throw some shading and highlights around. I'm sick of looking at it. I can't even tell if it's good or if it sucks anymore. I put in some final textures and effects. I title it something like lol dicks or whatever. I post it immediately before I look away from it long enough to think it's the worst art ever made. I wait for that one like on Twitter to happen. I feel validated enough to not cry myself to sleep. I spend 3 hours trying to sleep but just get horny instead. I take out my bedside notebook and write down some ideas for another. I never touch them again. Months later, inspiration strikes again, and I actually have time to draw something. And thus, the cycle of beep repeats. And #X200B. Edit, all these people asking to see my art, expecting busty anime girls, but few will know I just draw gross old middle-aged men doing gross things with each other, but like, in a tender and loving way. Also, I haven't had a chance to really draw anything NSFW lately because of work and school, and my overall art style is rapidly and drastically changing as of late, so I'm not 100% confident showing art from like last year that looks nothing like what I do now. And #X200B. Edit 2, there's 2 kinds of people in the replies, fellow artists and people who are unfamiliar with the creative process and are very concerned. Don't worry, this is slightly hyperbolic. Also, most people hate their own work because we've been staring at it for so long and know what we wanted it to look like and can see all of its flaws front and center. Usually after a few months I'll look at it again and either have a wow, I drew that? But it's so good moment, or a wow, look how much better I've gotten, I shouldn't give up after all moment.
Does my answer count if I write erotica? 'cause I did a couple of times, though I never ended up finishing the piece. I would just get in such a mood and start writing it and lose control, and then afterwards I'd get so embarrassed by what I wrote I think I deleted most of it.
I edit mostly, don't make art myself, and it happens whenever I suddenly drop out of the zone. Usually I'm zoomed in too much, focused on the color changes, or thinking about how I should get this to blend, and what other changes I want to make. If I'm making a particular sexy change, I'll just jack off, and it might stop that editing session, which I resume later.
I saw few porn actresses say in interviews that they exclusively watch their own stuff as it will remind them, oh, this exact moment felt so good, or I'm gonna come right here, and so on.
It depends. Some commission of a weird character or fetish I'm not into, then it's just work. Actual art, I'm making for myself, my portfolio, then hell yes, getting that sexual energy out onto the canvas as a part of the process, and it's what makes the art good.
I draw pornography for the sole purpose of getting turned on by it.
It's hard work, getting harder.
Well, not exactly porn, but back in the early 2000s I used to make anime girls using a program called Poser Pro with content from DOS 3D and had a modest following on DeviantArt. My stuff wasn't really lewd most of the time, mostly just attractive, edgy, sexy anime girls, but privately I was making my own personal collection of fat material. I have pretty innocuous fetish that I am very particular about, and it can be really difficult to find porn that satisfies it. About 7 years ago I shut down my DeviantArt even though it was actually still getting hits despite me hardly ever uploading anything. It was cool that people liked my stuff, but I felt mostly ashamed of it and didn't want people to find it and figure out it was me. I still have everything backed up too, all my images I uploaded to DA and the 25 gigabytes runtime containing all the content I used. I don't think you can even find some of that stuff anymore. I am married now, I have shared all of it with my wife and she is 100% cool with it. Yet I still feel so ashamed and weird about it to the point where I don't even want to share an image here to back up what I'm saying. I don't even know why I'm writing this.
Not really. I'm into dudes and the only commissions I really get are big titty anime girls, like they're pretty, just not into it.
I tried nude art to get back into drawing after more than a decade of not doing anything. First, I took a figure drawing class with live models for the art and for meeting like-minded people, then tried to practice drawing at home, which included drawing porn stars to motivate myself. Unfortunately, my anhedonia was at its peak at the time, so although I could see the beauty and sensuality for a few seconds, it wouldn't last long enough for me to enjoy the drawings. My sketches were fine, but the whole act felt mechanical and I gave up.
I'm no artist, but I gotta say I respect the dedication it took for you to ask this question like 5 separate times.
I'm a digital artist, smiley face. I draw NSFW content mainly to satisfy myself as there isn't a lot of exactly what I'm into, and yes, working out the concept and actually drawing it is a turn on, especially if I'm planning out a comic. Writing the script and the details of the scenes depicted often make me actually have to stop halfway and deal with it because it can be too much. It's also hard because my interests are so niche, really only I can provide content that is exactly what I want, so basically I'm creating the perfect content for myself. How could I not get turned on by it?
Well, sometimes because I mostly draw my imaginary dream girlfriend, 'cause I am lonely and never will have a girlfriend.
Here is a pro tip for all you budding artists to up your realism game. A human anus typically has 5 spokes. Reddit taught me that this weekend.
I hope this blows up, really wondering.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.